Aura Marks stood outside Saren's apartment with a trembling smile, a velvet ring box tucked inside his coat. He had spent months designing the perfect moment, right down to disguising himself as a courier to deliver a mystery gift before revealing the ring. But the instant she opened the door, everything he believed in collapsed. Saren wasn't alone. She was laughing, close, intimate, familiar, with Darren Rook, Oren's biggest rival in the advanced robotics sector. And on the table behind them were digital schematics. His schematics, the private prototype for an autonomous stabilization core he had been building for 2 years. He didn't confront them. He simply swallowed the heartbreak and walked away, because buried inside those stolen files was a silent failsafe only he could trigger, one that would expose both of them the second they tried to claim his work as their own. And Oren was done being the quiet genius. The ceramic mug shattered before it hit the floor. Oren Marks didn't even realize he dropped it. His fingers went numb the second he saw the message flashing across the secure lab terminal. Unauthorized access. Traced to an internal account. A breach inside a system only 2 people were supposed to touch. His pulse slammed against his ears. He took one step toward the screen, then another, until his breath fogged the glass. The system wasn't lying. Someone was in the archive. Someone was copying fragments of the Helix code. His life's work, the algorithm that could reshape entire industries if it ever saw the light of day. And the most frightening part wasn't the breach. It was the name of the last person who had logged in. Saren Valen, his girlfriend of 5 years. His partner. His confidante. The woman he had planned to propose to tonight. He whispered her name under his breath, as if saying it aloud might change the meaning on the screen. Saren? No, not you. He stood completely still, waiting for his heartbeat to slow, waiting for logic to kick in. It didn't. Instead, he felt a sharp pull deep in his gut, the exact moment when faith begins to crumble. The door behind him slid open. Oren, are you still here? Saren's voice floated into the room, warm, gentle, familiar. He didn't turn around. His hands curled into fists at his sides. Did you access the archive tonight? There was a pause, a fraction of a second, barely noticeable. But to Oren it was a blade slicing open certainty. I don't know what you mean, she replied, too lightly. He finally turned. Saren stood in the doorway with a soft smile, her hair falling loosely over her shoulders, looking exactly like the woman he loved, but sounding nothing like her. Because the Saren he knew would laugh off the accusation or ask what was wrong or rush to his side in concern. But Saren hesitated. This Saren calculated. Come here, he said quietly. Just come take a look at this. She stepped forward, but her eyes flickered, a tiny flash of fear, or guilt, or both. When she reached him, he gestured toward the screen. Your login was used to access the restricted section. Her voice wavered just slightly. Maybe the system glitched. You know it's been unstable lately. No, he said. Not this part. It's isolated. He swallowed hard. Saren, please tell me this isn't what it looks like. She met his gaze with eyes that had comforted him through heartbreak, through exhaustion, through triumphs. But now they felt distant, layered. Her mouth opened, but before she could speak, Oren's wristwatch vibrated. A secure alert. He tapped it. Another breach warning. Another fragment of Helix code extracted. This time, the system traced the transfer to an external relay node. And a name appeared in the metadata. Darren Rook, Oren's fiercest rival. The man who tried to buy Helix code twice and sabotage it 3 times. Saren stepped back. He stepped back too, as if the distance between them could make the truth hurt less. How long? He whispered. She exhaled shakily. Oren, please. I didn't want it to be like this. How long? He repeated, voice breaking. Her eyes lowered. Over a year. The air left his lungs in one violent rush, as if someone had punched him in the chest. A year, he echoed, numb. The room felt too bright, too narrow, too sharp. He staggered back until his hand hit the table for support. Conversations, memories, comfort, secrets. Every moment shared between them rewound in his mind, twisting into something sinister. He had trusted her with everything. She had used everything against him. Why? His voice cracked. She looked at the floor instead of him. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Her silence was louder than any confession. He dragged his hand over his face. I was going to propose to you. Her breath caught, whether from regret or guilt. He couldn't tell. Oren, I never meant to hurt you. Then why did you? She didn't answer. A hollow ache spread inside him, deeper than rage, deeper than fear. The kind that comes when a person realizes they've been living beside a stranger wearing a mask shaped like love. Oren forced himself to straighten. The rawness in his chest solidified into an icy calm. Leave. Saren flinched. Oren, please. Leave, he repeated, firmer. Her lips trembled before she finally nodded and walked out. She hesitated at the doorway, but he didn't look up. When the door slid shut behind her, the silence was unbearable. He sank into the nearest chair, head buried in his hands. She was working with Darren Rook. She had been for a year. She had been copying his code. She had been deceiving him every day, and Oren had been planning a future with her. He laughed then, a small broken sound. God, I'm an idiot. But beneath the heartbreak, beneath the humiliation, something else stirred. Cold clarity. He stood slowly, wiped his eyes, straightened his lab coat. Then he turned back to the screen and typed in a command he'd hoped he would never need. Helix code, contingency protocol, Echo Veil. A silent security phantom he'd built years ago, just in case his work was ever stolen. A digital trap, one the thief would never see coming. He stared at the terminal, jaw tightening. You want my work, Darren? He whispered. Fine. Take it. Take everything. His eyes darkened. And let it destroy you. The protocol uploaded itself in the background like a shadow crawling across the system. Then he grabbed his keys, shut down the lab, and walked out into the night. Heartbroken, furious, an awakening to a version of himself he didn't know yet. But the world was about to meet him. Every lie, every betrayal, every stolen fragment, they had all done something dangerous. They had turned Oren Marks into someone with nothing left to lose. And a man with nothing left to lose is the most unpredictable weapon on Earth. Oren drove through the streets of Astra Field, the city lights blurring as if the world around him were melting. He gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. His mind raced through every interaction he had with Saren over the last year. The quiet smiles, the late-night coding sessions, the shared excitement over breakthroughs in Helix code. Every memory twisted into evidence of betrayal. He pulled into a parking garage and sat in the car, staring at the dashboard. The hum of the engine felt like a heartbeat he couldn't match. A year, she lied, he muttered, voice hollow. He pressed the button on his wrist terminal and opened the secondary Helix monitoring system he had built for emergencies. Every node connected to his project was lit like a constellation, each one transmitting data silently into the trap he had activated earlier. Echo Veil. He replayed the logs again. Saren's logins, the fragments downloaded, the metadata showing Darren Rook's relay servers. Each detail fueled a fire in him. Not the blind, furious fire of immediate revenge, but a cold, precise planning fire. This was not a moment for screaming. It was a moment to outthink, outmaneuver, and expose. His phone vibrated. A message from Marcus, his assistant. You okay? Oren didn't respond. He needed focus. He had to see the endgame before touching the public stage. The next morning, he returned to his lab in silence, ignoring the notifications piling up on his secondary systems. He started drafting a digital profile of Darren's network, mapping every relay, every server, every suspicious handshake with Saren's terminal. He printed out a flow chart and stared at it, tracing connections with his finger. They think they're smart, he muttered. They think it's all theirs. They're wrong. Hours later, he received a call from an unknown number. Oren Marks. The voice was familiar, smooth, dripping confidence. Darren Rook. Oren's stomach turned, but his voice was steady. What do you want? You're aware that I've acquired some of your work, Darren said, amusement threading every word. Saren made sure of that, and thanks to her, the stabilization core will be mine at the expo. You should be proud. Actually, your design, my platform. A perfect partnership. Oren didn't flinch. He let the silence hang, just long enough to feel the tension press against the line. "I see," he said finally. "And you think no one will notice?" Darren chuckled. "Not all. Once it's running live, the audience will assume the creation is ours. You should consider this a lesson in trust." Oren's eyes narrowed. "Trust," he repeated, letting the word roll in the silence. Then, with controlled calm, he said, "You'll see. You'll notice." Darren scoffed. "I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to see how you plan to stop inevitability." "Don't keep me waiting, Oren." Click. The line went dead. Oren pressed his hand against the cold metal of the terminal, heart steadying. He opened the secondary helix system and initiated the preloaded decoy firmware. Every step had to be perfect. If the timing was off by even a fraction of a second, Darren and Saren could realize the trap and escape before the public would witness it. He took a deep breath, remembering the night Saren smiled at him, promising to always support his dreams. That lie struck him again, but now the pain sharpened into purpose. He imagined her at the expo stage, smiling as if the applause was hers to share. He pictured Darren boasting about how he outsmarted Oren Marks. And then he smiled, because they had set the stage perfectly for their own downfall. Marcus knocked softly on the lab door. "Oren, people are asking why you're skipping lunch. Maybe take a break." "I don't have time for breaks," Oren said, voice tight. "This is bigger than us. I need everything ready before tomorrow." Marcus nodded slowly. "All right, boss. Just don't lose yourself in it, okay?" "I'm not," Oren replied, but he didn't even try to convince himself. He poured another cup of coffee, stared at the console, and watched the Echo Veil protocol quietly replicate itself across every node, each fragment being mirrored, tracked, and logged. Every unauthorized copy would now feed him intelligence without the thieves realizing it. He started composing messages, disguised as system updates, to Darren's technical team, seeding subtle errors and creating fake confirmations of the stolen code's operational success. If Darren noticed anything amiss before the expo, it would be too late. The public exposure sequence was already in motion. By late afternoon, Oren stepped away for the lab. The city's skyline shimmered in the golden hour sun, a world oblivious to the quiet war happening in lines of code and human deception. He walked through the crowded streets, blending in, watching the patterns of everyday life. Each person unknowingly mirrored the chaos he felt inside, the ordinary mask over hidden truths. That evening, he sat alone in his small apartment, reviewing the sequence one more time. Every contingency, every fail-safe, every public trigger meticulously tested. And at the very edge of the plan, he inserted one final layer, a public reveal message tied to the stabilizer's operational interface. It would display live data proving ownership, irrevocable and undeniable. He leaned back in a chair, exhausted but focused. He allowed himself a moment of thought, a brief pang of loneliness, a betrayal of loss. He whispered into the silence, "This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. And justice will be public." He checked the time. The expo would begin in less than 24 hours. Darren and Saren would believe their victory was near, that Oren had been rendered powerless by heartbreak. They had no idea they were walking into a trap of their own making. As night fell, Oren finally allowed himself to rest, though sleep was shallow and filled with calculations. Lines of code danced in his mind, scenarios played out in rapid succession, and yet one thing was clear. He was no longer the man who had walked out of the lab heartbroken. He was a strategist, a ghost in the system. And when the public light fell on that stage tomorrow, the world would witness something none of them had anticipated. Because Oren Marks had nothing left to lose and everything to expose. The next morning, Oren arrived at his lab before sunrise, the city still wrapped in a quiet fog. The streets were empty. The only sound was the hum of his electric car as he parked. He walked inside, boots echoing against the polished concrete floor, and headed straight for the main terminal. Marcus was already there, headphones on, reviewing sensor logs. He looked up as Oren entered, eyes wide. "Morning, boss. Coffee." Oren shook his head. "No time." Every system, every node, double-check. We go live in less than 12 hours. Marcus hesitated. You're sure this will work? Oren didn't answer immediately. He studied the cascade of data on the screen. Every access point, every fragment of Helix code being monitored, every simulated trigger aligned. He finally spoke, voice low, steady. It has to. They think they're ready. They're not. Not even close. Hours passed. Oren ran simulations, altered dummy firmware, adjusted sensor nodes, and tested trigger sequences. He imagined the expo stage, the cameras, the investors, the live stream. Every move by Darren and Saren had been anticipated, every claim of ownership preempted. By midday, Oren received a video message from Saren's corporate email, timestamped for delivery during his work hours. He didn't open it immediately. He let it sit on the screen, a silent taunt. Eventually, curiosity and controlled calculation made him click play. Saren appeared, smiling directly at the camera, flawless, radiant. Oren, I hope you're proud of me, she said. The stabilization core will finally reach the world. All thanks to your designs. I'm sorry you can't see it live, but sometimes sacrifice is necessary for success. Enjoy the show from afar. Oren closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He opened the console again and typed, Echo Veil, Layer Delta, Public Sync active. The system began quietly mirroring itself onto the public test servers, invisible to Darren's team, ready to trigger the final reveal. Marcus watched him, uneasy. He's trying to get into your head, boss. Don't let her. Oren turned sharply, a flash of cold fire in his eyes. She already did, but now it's my turn to speak. As the evening fell, Oren left the lab for the first time that day. He walked the streets, phone in hand, reviewing the schematics of the dummy core remotely. Every line of code, every operational sequence, every interface prompt was a potential bait, and he had made sure each was irresistible. He envisioned Darren rushing to correct errors, Saren double-checking her presentation, both believing they were steps ahead. By night, Oren returned home to his silent apartment. He set up monitors to watch multiple live feeds, market data, social chatter, engineering forums. He wanted to track every whisper, every speculation about the upcoming expo. He pored over analytics, heart steady, mind razor-sharp. Sleep came only briefly, shallow and haunted by what tomorrow would bring. In the brief moments he drifted, he dreamed of the expo stage. Cameras panning, Darren's triumphant grin, Saren bowing to applause. And then the screen's glitch. Data cascading. Live evidence of theft everywhere. He woke with a start, blood pumping, fingers already reaching for the keyboard to double-check the final triggers. Morning arrived too quickly. Oren arrived at the lab again, Marcus beside him. Everything is synced, Marcus reported. You really think they won't notice? They won't, Oren said, calm and chillingly assured. By the time they realize, the world will already know. They reviewed the plan once more. The dummy firmware uploaded, the metadata logging authentic ownership, the staged public glitch. Every fail-safe active, every path Darren or Saren could take was already anticipated. Hours later, Oren received confirmation from a field agent. Darren's convoy had arrived at the expo venue. He watched the live feed, seeing the rival engineers swagger into the building, flanked by assistants and media personnel. His heart beat steadily, not from fear, but anticipation. The trap was in motion. Oren checked the Echo Veil logs again. Every access point was active. Every data packet flows exactly as predicted. He allowed himself a small smirk. Perfect, he whispered. They think they've won. As the event hall filled, Marcus voiced what Oren had known, but never admitted aloud. It's huge. Investors, press, live streaming, everything. Oren nodded. Good. The bigger the stage, the bigger the fall. The morning sunlight streamed through the expo's glass facade as the doors opened. Darren and Saren stepped onto the stage, confident, composed, rehearsed. Cameras zoomed in. Investors leaned forward. Social media notifications began flooding Oren's phone as live updates streamed from the scene. Oren sat in his apartment, watching the feed, calm. He sipped coffee, glancing at the countdown timer. Every second brought the moment closer, every heartbeat measured against the trap's precision. He thought back to Saren's words in the video. "I hope you're proud of me." The memory didn't sting anymore. It fueled him. Every lie, every manipulation, every stolen bite of code had built this moment, and now the stage was theirs, but not for long. He typed commands with deliberate slowness, activating the final public sequence. The interface on Darren's prototype flashed briefly, a ripple across the system, just noticeable enough to trigger their curiosity. Unstage, darin faunet. That's odd, he said aloud, brushing off the anomaly. Saren glanced at him nervously. "It's probably just a minor glitch," she said, voice betraying tension she didn't want to show. Oren leaned back in his chair, eyes sharp. "Wait for it," he whispered. The audience at the expo remained oblivious, yet online chatter began to spike. Tech enthusiasts and journalists noticed anomalies in the stream feeds. Comments appeared, speculating on the device's functionality. And then, the main interface exploded with live logs, timestamps, and authenticated ownership. Every display screen in the hall suddenly showed original design owner, or marks. Gasps erupted. Cameras zoomed in on Darren's face. Confusion, horror, realization all at once. Saren's expression drained, her confident smile collapsing as she read the logs. Security rushed toward the stage, but the public feed continued uninterrupted. Investors murmured, phones came out, and reporters shouted into cameras. "This design is not theirs. Look at the timestamps." Ownership confirmed. Oren didn't cheer. He sat silently, watching the years of betrayal finally laid bare for the world. His pulse slowed as satisfaction settled in. Not vindictive, not cruel, but the steady, cold certainty that justice had arrived in the only way that mattered. Publicly, irrevocably. Marcus leaned forward, on his eyes. "It's perfect," Oren nodded. "Yes, and it's over." The fallout was instantaneous. Social media erupted with live clips from the expo. Tech journalists dissected the evidence, screenshots went viral, and hashtags like hashtag #OrenMarks and hashtag HelixCode flooded platforms. Oren sat back in his apartment, watching the chaos ripple outward, each wave confirming the trap had worked exactly as planned. Darren Rook was being ushered off stage by security, but his attempts to argue, to claim some semblance of ownership, were drowned out by the flood of digital proof cascading across screens worldwide. Investors murmured in disbelief, withdrawing commitments in real time. The value of his company plummeted before his eyes. Saren's phone buzzed incessantly. She tried to reach Oren, typing messages furiously. "Oren, please listen. It wasn't supposed to go this far." Each message landed like a hammer on his resolve. He didn't respond. Not yet. He could have picked up. He could have screamed back, could have demanded explanation, demanded apology. But the years of deceit had taught him one lesson. Words were meaningless when matched with lies. Instead, he watched. He let the system do the talking. "Marcus," he said quietly, "this is the moment where we step back and let them burn in their own fire." Marcus, still stunned, nodded. "It's harsh, but justice, right?" "Yes," Oren replied, voice steady. "Justice, exacted without blood, without rage. Pure precision." Later, as news anchors replayed the incident, Oren allowed himself a small smile. He had predicted every move, every pause, every misstep. Darren had thought he could manipulate technology, but Oren had manipulated them. Every interaction, every code fragment, every moment leading to the spectacle. He leaned back, hands clasped behind his head. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of the monitors. For the first time in weeks, the crushing weight of betrayal eased slightly. The Helix code was safe, his intellectual property intact, and the world now knew. Hours passed, and messages continued to flood his inbox. Legal teams contacting him, journalists requesting interviews, engineers sharing congratulations. And yet, he felt nothing but calm. A notification popped up. Saren had tagged him in a post on a professional platform. The message was brief. "I never wanted this. Please, let's talk." Oren stared at the screen. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He imagined the words he could send: forgiveness, anger, contempt. None felt right. Instead, he closed a message and leaned back. Some doors, once closed, should never be reopened. The next day, Oren walked into the lab for the first time since the expo. The city had woken to the spectacle of the scandal, and he felt the subtle weight of admiration and fear from peers who knew the story. He went straight to the Helix archive and ran final integrity checks. Every line of code untouched, every access log recorded, every exploit sealed. Marcus came in, carrying coffee. "You're really okay with how it all played out?" he asked, tentatively. Oren gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "It's not about being okay. It's about being unbreakable. That's what matters now." By evening, Oren received an email from a global tech firm expressing interest in licensing the stabilization core. The offer was generous, but more than money, it represented recognition. His work, stolen and almost lost, had now been validated publicly. He typed back a concise acceptance, careful to maintain control of his creation. He realized that while betrayal had shattered trust, it had also clarified purpose. His vision for the stabilization core could continue, unhindered by interference. The night sky was clear as he stepped outside for a moment, feeling the cool breeze on his face. He thought of Saren, of Darren, of the betrayal that had set this chain in motion. The pain was still there, sharp in memory, but tempered by control. Oren had been broken only to emerge sharper, more focused, and entirely unassailable. He allowed himself a thought. The world hadn't seen the last of Helix Code, but they had seen what happened to those who underestimated him. And that was enough. Marcus joined him, quiet first. Then, softly, "Are you going to tell anyone what really happened?" Oren shook his head. "Some truths are too dangerous to share. People need to learn from the spectacle, not the secrets behind it." They walked back inside, lights from the lab spilling onto the street. Oren glanced once at the city skyline, knowing that tomorrow, the headlines would be about innovation, scandal, and brilliance, but never the quiet, cold planning that had orchestrated it all. Late into the night, he returned to his terminal. He opened the Helix code, running simulations for the next generation of the stabilization core. His hands moved confidently over the keyboard. Every line of code reflected not only genius, but a hard-earned wisdom. Intelligence without caution was useless, trust without verification was fatal, and vengeance was best left to precision. He paused, a thought flickering across his mind. Some betrayals break you. Others build you into someone unshakable. And Oren Marks knew he was the latter. The following week, Oren returned to the expo hall, not as a participant, but as a quiet observer. The echoes of the scandal still lingered, reporters revisiting footage, social media feeds alive with analysis and speculation. Darren's company was in turmoil. Every decision he made was scrutinized. And Saren, she had disappeared from public view entirely. Oren stood in the back of the hall, alone, eyes scanning the stage, imagining every word he would have said if he had been forced to confront them in person. Marcus nudged him. "Do you want to see them?" Oren shook his head. "No, I don't need to. Their faces are burned into my mind already. And the truth, it's already out there. That's enough." Hours passed as Oren moved through the crowd, watching reactions, listening to discussions among investors, engineers, and journalists. He noticed whispers of admiration, of awe, and yes, of fear. Everyone knew someone had orchestrated a perfect trap, but no one knew exactly who. He smiled faintly. That ambiguity was his shield. Later that night, in the lab, Oren reviewed logs from the expo. Every access point, every attempt at manipulation, every minor adjustment they had tried was recorded, time-stamped, and mapped. He had all the data he could ever need. Not for revenge, not for ego, but for mastery. Knowledge was controlled, and now he had it in spades. Marcus glanced over his shoulder, hesitant. "Boss, you ever feel like maybe it's too much? I mean, they were just people." Oren didn't flinch. People can destroy worlds when they're clever enough. I learned that the hard way. It's not about cruelty. It's about survival, and sometimes survival demands precision. The next morning, Oren received a curious message from an anonymous source, a direct video file labeled "For Your Eyes Only." He opened it cautiously. Saren's face appeared, pale, anxious. "Oren, please. I didn't know it would come to this. Darren, he forced me. I tried to resist, I really did." But her voice cracked. "I was afraid. I didn't want to lose everything, my career, my reputation. I thought if I just gave him pieces, I could protect myself." Oren's fingers tightened on the edge of the desk. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he played the video again, noting every nuance, every hesitation, every lie in what she didn't say. The betrayal had been layered, complex, and strategic. She had convinced herself she had no choice, but choice had existed. She had simply ignored it. He finally typed a brief reply, careful, measured. "You made your choice. I made mine. There's nothing left to say." The message sent, he leaned back and let out a slow breath. Rage had already turned to cold clarity. There was no room for distraction, no space for sentiment. The next project demanded his attention. The stabilization core had survived, but now, Oren's vision needed to expand. Marcus approached with urgency. "Oren, we've detected activity. Someone is trying to reverse engineer the expo logs. They're digging through forums, trying to piece it together, maybe even fabricate evidence to discredit you." Oren's eyes narrowed. Let them try. He moved swiftly, deploying a secondary layer of echo veil, a hidden algorithm that would flag and track every attempt to manipulate the data. Every move they make will be recorded. Every lie they fabricate will be exposed. By afternoon, a journalist called with an interview request. Oren agreed, but only under strict conditions. No speculation, no personal questions, only focus on the technology and the importance of intellectual property protection. On camera, he spoke clearly, calmly, without a trace of anger. "Innovation is fragile," he said, "and trust in technology is priceless. Theft isn't just illegal, it's destructive. Protect your work, protect your integrity." After the interview, Marcus leaned in. "You're not even mad anymore." Oren shook his head, a faint smile curling. "Madness is wasteful. Focus is everything. The world saw the outcome. The rest doesn't matter." That evening, Oren returned to the lab to check on new simulations. His fingers danced over the keyboard, adjusting calibration, refining sequences, testing fail-safes. He was already thinking ahead to the next iteration of the stabilization core. Faster, smarter, more resilient. Every step he took was forward. Every decision is precise. A ping on his terminal drew his attention. Another file labeled Project Feedback. He hesitated but opened it. A map of forums, social media chatter, investor reactions, and technical analyses unfolded. The public had been dissecting the expo moment in real time. They were fascinated, outraged, and impressed, exactly as he had anticipated. Engagement metrics spiked, the Helix Code brand and Oren's reputation exploding in parallel. Oren glanced at Marcus. "They're still talking about it. Medial. They're dissecting every move. This is engagement beyond anything I could have imagined." Marcus nodded slowly. "It's insane, and all because of your planning." "Planning isn't enough," Oren replied quietly. "It's execution. That's what counts. Strategy only matters if it lands at the right time, in the right way, for the right audience." Late that night, Oren sat alone, reviewing messages and comments from viewers, investors, and engineers alike. Each one a reminder. Success was public perception as much as technological achievement. His trap had delivered justice and also captured attention, attention that would fuel future projects, partnerships, and opportunities. Finally, he allowed himself a brief thought of Saren, just a fleeting, ghostly echo. He realized it was time to let her story fade. The lesson had been learned. Trust had boundaries, loyalty had conditions, and intelligence without application was meaningless. He saved the logs, locked down the system, and looked out over the city skyline. Astrofield glittered like a network of circuits below him. Alive, interconnected, unpredictable. And he was ready for the next challenge, the next iteration, the next betrayal if it came. For Oren Marks, there would be no more surprises. only precision, only strategy, only victory. And in the quiet of the night, he finally allowed himself a single, controlled smile. The world hadn't seen the last of him. Far from it. Oren woke before dawn, unable to sleep. His mind was alive with calculations, possibilities, and the quiet satisfaction of justice served. The city below Astra Field glimmered faintly as if in acknowledgement, unaware of the drama that had unfolded and the brilliance behind it. He walked to his terminal and reviewed the final data from the expo. Every unauthorized access, every attempt to manipulate the Helix code, every fabricated claim, logged, time-stamped, irrefutable. The digital fingerprint of Darren and Saren's betrayal was now permanent. No argument, no public spin, no media manipulation could erase it. A knock at the lab door made him turn. Marcus entered, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You really didn't rest at all, did you?" Oren shook his head. "Sleep is for those with nothing at stake. And I have everything at stake." Marcus handed him a cup. Well, it worked. Everything exploded online. People are still talking. Investors, engineers, journalists, they all want a piece of your story. This could make your career, Oren. Oren smiled faintly, but it was cold, controlled. "It's not about fame. It's about clarity, Marcus. People respect what they understand and fear what they can't control. I've given them both. Now it's time to focus on the future." He poured himself a slow sip and leaned back. Across the room, the Helix terminal hummed quietly. The Echo Veil protocol had done its work perfectly. Any attempt to reverse engineer or manipulate the stolen code would now alert him immediately. His inventions, his intellectual property, and his name were safe. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. Another video message. This one was from Darren Rook, shaky and desperate. "Oren, please, we can negotiate, we can." Oren hit play, listening for a moment, letting Darren's voice echo in the room. Then he closed the video without a word. There was nothing left to negotiate. The humiliation, the loss of control, and the public exposure had done more than any confrontation could. Silence was the final, sharpest response. Marcus looked uneasy. "You're not going to reply?" No, Oren's gaze hardened. Some mistakes are too large to forgive. Some betrayals are permanent lessons. He learned his. Even as night deepened, the city outside continued unaware, but online, the story had reached millions. Oren's engineering genius, paired with meticulous strategy, had created not just a spectacle, but a legend. Social media engagement exploded. Comments flooded in, admiration, disbelief, shock, awe. People debated the ethics, the brilliance, the audacity. Oren reviewed them silently. Some betrayals break you. Others rebuild you into someone unshakable, he murmured again. It was true. Every betrayal, every stolen bite, every manipulated moment had forged him into someone far beyond the man he had been months ago. 3 days later, the licensing contract for the stabilization core was finalized with a global engineering firm. The deal secured not just financial stability, but validation. The world now recognized the innovation as his. But Oren didn't celebrate. He simply logged into the lab, ran simulations for the next project, and observed results with the clinical precision of someone who had been burned and had learned how to control the fire. Marcus finally asked what Oren intended to do about Saren. Oren paused, thinking of her pleading face in the video. "She made choices," he said quietly. "I made mine. There's nothing left to fix. Some doors, once closed, should never be opened." For the first time in months, he felt a flicker of peace. Not joy. He wasn't naive anymore, but a sense of completion. He had rebuilt. He had adapted. And he had mastered the chaos of betrayal, transforming it into a tool, a weapon, and a lesson. Oren looked out at Astra Field once more, the skyline sparkling like circuits alive with energy and potential. His next projects would be bigger, smarter, and entirely his. No interferência, no deception, no compromise. Every line of code he wrote would be protected. Every move calculated. Every risk accounted for. Before leaving the lab, he paused and opened a blank message on a secure platform. He typed a single line. "The Helix code is mine. Respect it, Fear it, or watch what happens next. He deleted the message. It wasn't meant for anyone. Just a reminder to himself of the power of strategy, intelligence, and patience. Marcus nudged him one last time. So what's next, boss? Oren smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hinted at calculation beneath calm. Next, we create, we innovate, and we let the world see what true mastery looks like. He turned off the lights, leaving the lab bathed in darkness except for the faint glow of the monitors. The city awaited, unaware that Oren Marks had become more than a genius engineer. He was now a strategist, a force, and a story of brilliance forged through betrayal. As he walked away, one thought lingered. Trust is fragile. Loyalty is rare. But intelligence is forever. And with that, Oren disappeared into the night, ready for the next challenge, ready for the next triumph, leaving a digital legacy that would be remembered long after the headlines faded. If you've been glued to Oren's story until the very end, hit that like button, comment below what you think you should do next, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing stories of betrayal, innovation, and calculated revenge. Your support helps us bring these intense stories to life. So join the journey and never miss a twist.